And thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. I know you're representing the Housing Minister, James Brown, on this commencement matter. And as I've said to Minister Brown before, I really want him to succeed in his role as Housing Minister, as I think it will certainly lift the spirit of Ireland. The housing crisis is certainly a debacle, and I do think if we can make a difference, it will change many people's lives. You know, Minister, it's not the first time I've spoken about the homeless figures and emergency accommodation figures in this House. When I first was elected to this House, I have a whiteboard in my office, and I put on it the homeless numbers on that date, and there were 15,286. That was the number of people in emergency accommodation, and the number of children was just over 3,000. And I was excited to see the new Minister for Housing, and I was hoping that we would all be part of a solution to improve the numbers, and in an area that I am very familiar with through my voluntary role as Chair of Tiglin. So today, I just want to raise review progress, basically, and I'm sad to say that the situation has deteriorated even further since then. So the latest figures from the department are stark. There's 16,353 individuals in emergency accommodation, and now we have 5,145 children in homeless accommodation, and that's an increase of over 700 in total in the last year. So for the first time, as I've said, the number of children has gone over 5,000. So that's not just statistics. These are kids who are going to be brought up in emergency accommodation, and that's going to have huge impact going forward. So if you look at the numbers, emergency accommodation has risen by 13%. The amount of applicants in the last year, and even including in that is 2,400 new families, 252 people who are over the age of 65. So it does reflect a system that isn't working, and it seems that we have a housing plan that is certainly at the moment failing to meet the urgency that we're presented with. So now, as we approach the start of winter, it's getting colder, isolation, vulnerability, all of that impacts people that are homeless far more than the ordinary person. And if you look at Focus Ireland and Simon Communities, their recent reports, they're saying that housing alone is not enough. Support is also needed. And I wanted to think of an example of one guy who came to us at the Lighthouse, the homeless cafe on Pearse Street, and he's from your constituency, Minister. And he had dual diagnosis, so there was mental health and addiction issues, but he was homeless. He had tried different services for many years, and he came with, we got him into rehab, he got his life back on track, but he also had supported housing, and he started to work through our community employment scheme. And today, that guy, he now owns a house in Wicklow. He's a productive member of society, he's a manager in a company, and what I notice is that with the proper supports, you can actually change the individual, but change the world, and certainly change Ireland. So, Minister, I believe that we need to be more ambitious in the approach. I think you know that. And we not only need to provide housing solutions, we need to provide the supports that go with those solutions. I will say, even in the Lighthouse Cafe, the homeless cafe on Pearse Street, we feed about 500 a day. If you were to give me 500 houses today, it wouldn't solve the problem in there with the people. A lot of them have extra supports, and that's where we need to focus. So I do think, and it was mentioned before, the establishment of a housing task force, that would ensure housing accountability, but it would also ensure a coordinated action. So, Minister, my question really is, how are we going to deal with the numbers that are on the whiteboard so that we're not back here in 6 months looking at a worse situation? Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Senator Aubrey McCarthy, for raising the commencement matter on the plans for the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage to address the homeless and housing crisis. So the Minister and this Government are absolutely determined to meet the needs of people who need us to respond at pace to the housing challenges that we face. The programme for government commits to delivering 300,000 new homes by 2030. To drive this delivery, the government has committed to a new national housing plan to follow Housing for All, which will be underpinned by the required funding in the National Development Plan. The new national housing plan will be published early next month. This plan will focus on building social and affordable housing, delivering infrastructure, and activating land, securing finance and addressing viability challenges, boosting the capacity of the construction sector and promoting affordability and continuing to reduce vacancy by bringing much-needed stock back into use as we seek to secure a long-term pipeline of delivery and funding to 2030 and beyond. In July of this year, the Government published the revised National Development Plan, the largest ever capital injection in our economy since the history of the state. Excuse me. Of the $102 billion to be invested over the next 5 years, over $40 billion will be provided for housing and related water services in the period to 2030. Government is already investing record levels in the delivery of housing this year, with overall capital funding of almost €7.5 billion available. Addressing homelessness, and in particular homeless families and children, is a key priority for the Minister and for this Government. Ireland signed the Lisbon Declaration in June of 2021, which committed all signatories to work towards ending homelessness by 2030. The Minister will continue to work with the National Homeless Action Committee to ensure an all-of-government approach to drive the ambition of the Lisbon Declaration. Critical to supporting households to exit homelessness is our continued investment in the social housing programme. Budget 2026 has continued the record level of investment in social housing, with €2.9 billion in capital funding allocated to support the delivery of social homes by local authorities. This continued investment in the social housing programme will increase the supply of stock available to allocate to households on the social housing waiting list, including households in emergency accommodation. A key focus for the Minister is to reduce the time that families are spending in emergency accommodation. In September, the Minister wrote to 21 local authorities that have families in emergency accommodation for more than 12 months and asked them to use all available housing schemes to exit these families from emergency accommodation. He has ring-fenced an additional €50 million under the National Development Plan process to exit the households longest in homelessness accommodation, with a focus in the first instance on larger families with children and Housing First clients. Ensuring that families and children experiencing homelessness are provided with accommodation and supports is critical. Budget 2026 provides an allocation of €513.5 million to provide homeless emergency accommodation and supports. Capital funding of €50 million has been allocated to support the provision and maintenance of quality emergency transitional accommodation. So the new housing plan will ensure all possible measures are being taken across government to prevent homelessness.
Thank you, Minister.
Seanad.
And I really do appreciate the reply, and one line stands out, and I'm excited about it, that the Minister is putting as a priority addressing homelessness, and in particular homeless families and children, and that's a key priority. I will say I'm still slightly concerned, as in I'm dealing with the people through my voluntary work, and I would welcome the Minister to come down even to Pearse Street, which is fairly close, to meet some of the people that I've spoken about, and to realise they're not just statistics. And I think we can do more and we can do better to work to resolve it. I think home ownership at the moment, it looks like an impossible dream for many, and it seems we're missing out on a generation not only of home owners but also of 5,145 children that are in emergency accommodation doing their homework this evening with no play area, and of course they can't have their own friends over, etc. So I think even the results of that will be seen in the future. But I will say, if we're serious about solving the housing crisis, we have to prepare to be stronger, use urgent measures. I want to finish by saying to the Minister that I want Minister James Brown to be the most successful housing minister. I want this to work. I don't want to criticise just for the sake of gaining political capital. I want to be there, that if there's anything we can do, even as a Seanad, to improve the housing situation, we're totally behind the Minister. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Éireann.
Thanks. And again, just to thank the Senator for giving me the opportunity to respond on behalf of the Minister for Housing. And I want to reassert the strong commitment of the Minister and of this Government to addressing the housing challenges we face and that are touching every level of our society, as you've outlined. While there is still much more to do, considerable progress has been made to date under Housing for All. Between July of 2020 and the end of quarter two in 2025, over 50,600 social homes have been added to our social housing stock. There is a strong pipeline of social housing. Latest construction status report showed that a total of 26,684 social homes at all stages of design and build at the end of June of 2025, so just in excess of 25,000 in the pipeline. Since the launch of the Housing for All at the end of Q2 of 2025, nearly 16,900 affordable housing units have been delivered via approved housing bodies, local authorities and the Land Development Agency through the Home First scheme, the Cost Rental Tenant in Situ scheme and the Vacant Property Refurbishment Grant. A solid foundation has therefore been laid for future housing delivery, which will be driven by the new National Housing Plan and underpinned by record levels of state investment under the National Development Plan. So the new housing plan will include a range of measures to address homelessness, including the development of a homelessness prevention framework to ensure all possible measures are being taken across government to prevent homelessness. So again, I want to thank you for raising what is a really important issue.